So today we're going to look at Adventist history and its importance, and I'm going to go through a whole range of things, but I'm going to talk to you a little bit about different elements. Our motto that we've looked at our work is that the heritage of the past is the seed that brings forth the harvest of the future. Our heritage is such important. And we're going to go through a whole range of different elements of history and our heritage and make it all make sense for our church. But I thought it'd be a really good idea first is to tell you I'll give you a quick rundown of Adventist heritage. Some of you I know Adventist heritage, some of you I've never met before, and I'd love to meet you afterwards. But I'm going to give you a little bit of a background about something that you can use. And you'll see as we go forward through the presentation that we are here to help you. Adventist Heritage Centre, we may be in Kurumbong, but we are out to help you any way we possibly can. But I really want to show you something if I'm on the right one. I'm not. So our motto is to promote Adventist history, preserve Adventist history, and inspire through Adventist history. That's what we train to do. Whenever we're doing our work, that's what we're doing. Preserving, promoting, and to inspire. And we love to see people being inspired through our history. I'm going to show you a little clip. Now, this is one of my favourite clips. We've done a series of videos that tell the story of Ellen White in Australia. And because everyone talks about her overseas. There's more to our history than just Ellen, but this is something that we've done. I hope it comes up through the speakers and it sounds really good. Is it working? Wiggle. Okay, so it's a really good clip.
May we please have an apple?
Sure. Help yourself. Girls, help yourself.
Now it's working. Not very loud. You want me to start it again? We'll start again. I'll bring it back a bit.
Children are precious in the sight of God, in order that the work may go forward in all its branches. God calls for youthful vigor, zeal, and courage. He has chosen the youth to aid in the advancement of his cause. Young men and women are invited to give God the strength of their youth, that through the exercise of their powers, through keen thoughts and vigorous actions, they may bring glory to him and salvation to their fellow men.
Do you like that? We, at the Heritage Centre, we focus a lot on our youth. Because what we've worked out is if we produce something for young people, the more mature people will watch it. But if we produce something for the more mature people, our young people probably won't. So we focus quite heavily on anything that we produce is for youth. We want them to take hold of our heritage. So I'm going to take you on a little bit of a journey first. In January 2022, there was 80 pallets of documents taken to Kurumbong. 80 pallets, this high. That's a lot of documents. In the next 2 years, well, this is where we are in 2026 with whole new systems of making sure that we can hold our documents. We also have, not only do we have documents, but we have some amazing artefacts. This book here, up on the right top, your left, is the ledger from 1894. And if you look at the next page, it's got Mrs. White's name and how she contributed to it. It's in beautiful condition. If you go to the next picture, that's the record of the first minutes of the first meeting in Australia of Seventh-day Adventists putting themselves together. So we've got this book, and that's done by Willie White, who wrote that. So we think that's amazing, and it goes through right through. So we've got information like that, and they're kept in a climate-controlled, cool spot, so we're making sure that they are kept forever. We also have a lot of really cool artefacts. As you can see down here, this one interests me a lot too. The girls were in our room in the artefacts, and they pulled out a grenade that had been passed on, and they weren't quite sure what to do with it. I was in Sydney for a meeting, and they said, "What do we do?" I said, "Oh, I'm no expert in grenades. Maybe you ought to ring someone." So they rang the Australian Defence Force, as you do, and they said, "Ring the police." So we had the police turn up and look at this grenade, and they said it was okay, it was safe, but we found it, and we weren't quite sure what to do with it. Down on the bottom right corner, we have a lady from the Queensland University who came and had a look at our collections, particularly our Pacific collection, and she was aghast at how, not aghast, that's not the right word, she was staggered by how good it is. Amazing, amazing things that we have. I'm going to move through quickly so we can... We have a research room at the bottom of Avondale College, which is connected Avondale University, which is connected directly to the E.G. White Research Centre. And if you'd love to come and research, we'll set you up in that space to come and work. There's a couple of the ladies that were very happy with how they'd set it up. We'd also invite you to come to Sunnyside. Now, Sunnyside has undergone quite a transformation. Have a look at that picture, you can see a QR code. You can do a QR code of Sunnyside now. If we have large groups, sometimes we have up to 70 to 80 people on a Sabbath afternoon, which is amazing. And we've turned it into a place where if Mrs. White came back today, she could walk in and move in. And we had a lot of fun with the American NAD guys that came over, and also the GC guys, because this is the one house that Mrs. White actually had input into building. If you know her story, she lived at Battle Creek and a couple of other places, and then she moved to Elmshaven. Now, Elmshaven, she bought lock, stock and barrel, fully furnished, but this is the house that she put together. And if you walked in today, you would see that there's a writing room, and there's her bedroom, and then there's a room that represents her work when it started with medical. Then there's the parlour. Now the parlour is what we call our lounge room today, and it's quite differently set up. You're actually looking at each other. You're not looking at the device on the wall. And it's kitchen outside. And the thing that we like to do, and you saw from that clip that I gave you, is that we're trying to make this come alive. Because if you were back there in the 1890s, there was 540 fruit trees. There was gardeners, there was chooks, there was cows, it was alive. And it was an amazing place to be. There was 2 children born there, out in a tent out the back. Unbelievable. And it was a place where people went all the time because Mrs. White looked after the community. And I'll talk to you a little bit about that later on. One of the things we're doing as a Heritage Centre is we're encouraging the community to become involved in our heritage. And we have school groups come through. We have about 10 school groups come through, 60 children, and we get them dressed up in old clothes. They make butter, they make damper. We get them doing washing the old way, on a board. I always tell them that I brought my washing for the day. thank you very much for coming. And they have a great time. We have visitors. That's the Papua New Guinean Prime Minister who came along and decided to hold up a Bible like Alan did. But he was cheating. He was holding it like this. She was holding it like this, and I think the record is about just on 2 minutes for someone actually doing it. And it's not even the real weight. It's actually less than what she held. We have a lot of community events. Anyone ever watched our program we have in October called The Great Appointment? It's a little bit of a switch on the Great Disappointment, and we'll talk a little bit about that later too. But we're involved in a whole range of different things. We're involved with Catalyst. We're going and do lectures with Catalyst. We've been involved in the Hive program. We have lots of visitors. Have a couple of people that like to show off their t-shirts, which you can buy. One of the things and we'd encourage you to do this in your space, is to get some social media going. We have our web page, we have our Facebook page, and we have our Instagram page. And we'd love you to follow them if you possibly can. Adventist Heritage Centre. So they're always got information coming through. We've got someone that puts something out once a week. We'd love to do more. And one of the things that during the Great Appointment, we've turned it into October is Adventist Heritage Month. So I'm going to ask, did anyone see our Heritage Month last year? We had a reel you did. How good were they? We spent every morning for the whole month of October, we had a reel come, and we also had a podcast that went with it that told the story. And I'm going to show you a little bit of that later on. Some of you may not have seen, Sarah is here, and she's been looking after our Bible collection. Now, we've been given 3 tons of ancient Bibles that go back to the 1400s. And we're a custodian of them. So we're looking after them. We've actually got, the SPD's been very kind to give us a budget so we can travel with them. We travel with them, we take them to, we had 2 Bible displays this last weekend, one here, which is out there, and at the Grey Nomads. We were at the North New South Wales Conference, we've had it at Avondale University. There's some schools that want us to be involved. If you want us to come and be where you are, please talk to us. We'll bring our Bibles. Incredible. I think there's a 350-year-old goat skin scroll that we've got there, sitting there. So that tells the story that our Bible has lasted through the years. We work with a lot of church entities, and if your church entity is up there, we're doing well. That's a lot of people we're working with at the moment. We work with Sanitarium, Sydney Adventist Hospital, SPD obviously, Adventist Media, South New South, North New South Wales Conference. We're just going over to WA Conference in a week and a half's time, and they're setting up a heritage centre on their campground. Greater Sydney Victorian Conference, North New Zealand, PNGUM, Avondale University, NZPUC, Fulton and PAU. So we're working with a lot of people. We also have spent time and we've updated the Record Authority so that we can help you establish what records you need to keep, how long you need to keep them, what condition you need to keep them in, conditions you need to keep them. So we spent a lot of time doing that, and that's now policy within the SPD. Now, I can't go any further without mentioning the amazing staff at the Adventist Heritage. If you ring up, they'll ring you back. That's a promise. It says 14, but I think we're about 17 now. And one of the things about our staff is we have a motto that you never let your best ideas stay in the car park. Nothing is a dumb idea. Most of them are brilliant. And most of them, if they're not so good, by the time we get out talking about it, they're amazing. So we want you to think about that if you want to talk to us. In 2024, we were awarded the Centre of Excellence from David Trim at the ASTR from the GC. So in just over 2 years, we established a Centre of Excellence. Now, we're happy to help you if you're setting up a heritage centre or want to know anything about getting accreditation. We're happy to help you do that. We've developed a lot of the documents that you will need to achieve that. So that was a pretty exciting time. We actually achieved just the recognition of the Centre of Excellence, a recognition of accreditation in 12 months before we got the full award. So that's why I'm saying the team are amazing. There you go. Earlier this year we had representatives from TPUM and PNGUM come to the Heritage Centre in Cooranbong, and we had a 2-week training course, which was a whole lot of fun, and we learnt a lot. And everyone went back inspired to do what they could do in their space. Elisha, last weekend you opened the Adventist Heritage Centre at Fulton College, part of that PAIR project. And now we're working with Elijah to get accreditation. That's the next step? Fantastic. So we want you guys to think about how we can work with you. So the question is, why are you here today? Why have you come to this particular workshop? Your love of history? Is it cooler than another spot? It seemed like all the cool people were here. Why did you come? There's obviously a reason. So is our Adventist heritage important as a time that we're in now? And we're going to talk about that because absolutely it is. Come on. Okay, every morning, anyone heard of the Andrew Stewart? The plane that was at one of our great, well-known mission planes that through PNG and all around the Pacific. Every morning, I get to walk past it as I walk into the office. And every morning, there's this, I won't say a weight, but there's this expectation of that I'm there to do something really important for the day. We have the full picture there that's almost as big as this wall that I walk past, and then we have the actual plane. It's a little bit in disrepair at the moment. It hasn't got wings on, hasn't got a motor. We'd love to be able to rebuild it one time and get it back to its former glory, but it's a weight of, I'm trying to think of the right word, but it's actually really inspirational every day to walk in there. And when you have people come in, they come into the Heritage Centre and they go, oh, look at that Andrew Stewart. I said, just come with me. And around the corner is the actual plane. Oh, I rode in that as a kid. The amount of people that have told me that they rode in that in their early days is amazing. Been here, guys? Anyone been up to Biziatabu? Know this story? I was lucky enough to go there a couple of years ago, and standing at the grave, or no, it's actually not the grave, it's the memorial of this gentleman who, Penny, I've got to get it right, and standing and looking, because the memorial looks out over the school, and it was pretty moving. And it was this amazing feeling of what a great story we've got to tell. If you don't know the story, this gentleman was out in the garden, got bitten by a snake, didn't go to Port Moresby for help, and as he realised he was getting sicker and sicker and sicker from the snake bite, he called in the boys from the school and he started talking to them about Jesus. And he died in that place. Now, is there an adjunct to that story? 100 years later, I've heard there might be. We'll get back to that. Now, this is an interesting one. Does it look familiar? No? Yes? That's actually my grandfather. My grandfather was a division evangelist. He, funnily enough, he worked in the print building and the library at Avondale in 1925. And last year I was working in the print building and the library in 2025. He worked, and I've got this trunk here that I keep that talks about that he used to carry around. Now, the story about what makes me interesting is that we used to go on holidays with my dad and the family, and we used to go on caravan holidays, and all of a sudden we'd be going down the road at Warrnambool, and Dad would go, oh, we're going up here. So we'd go up here, and he goes, I lived there as a kid. as my grandfather travelled around being evangelist. We went to Orange, Bathurst, Toowoomba, into the city of Sydney, where he lived. And he was an evangelist, and they used to just pack up everything in their car. And that was it, their car, their whole lot of belongings. They didn't have, a removal truck come in, container or anything. Everything was in crates like that on their car. And they travelled around. And it's pretty important to me because, I didn't think I was going to get like that. Dad passed away a few years ago, and he used to work on our fruit property. And we used to go, "Who are you talking to, Dad?" He'd be out on the tractor. And when he died, we went to his bedside table. I told this story before, and I never got like this. And we found all these lollies. And his upbringing was such that travelling around and doing the things he did, he savoured everything he had. And it made me really interested in what was this so important movement that he was involved in as a kid. And he passed away, and he knew where it was going. So, heritage is the bridge between memory and mission, connecting the faith of yesterday with the hope of tomorrow. If you've lost anyone that you've cared about and they've got hope, it doesn't make it any easier, but it makes it understandable. So, I like this quote from Winston Churchill, one of the great leaders. "The further backward you can look, the further forward you're likely to see." Everything helps you. It gives you basis. It gives you a foundation. So, quickly, with someone next to you, what happens when a church forgets its story? I love churches that know their story. Even the local churches. I love the fact that they know their own story. If I went around and talked to you probably about your church, you would know it, your story. And you would know the elders that were there before you and the ones before that, because it was passed down and it was so important to them. And it was so important for them to keep going in Jesus and working for him and telling about who we are and what we are. What happens when our memory disappears? When memory fades, it's very simple. Our identity weakens. I heard anyone with North New South Wales camp, Pastor Eric Walsh was there, and he talked about if we didn't have our particular doctrines that we have, we might as well just be anyone. Because that's what makes us special. That's what makes us unique. And we'll talk about that. When identity weakens, our mission loses clarity. And looking at the stuff that we saw from PNG for Christ, and we're going to see in TPUM for Christ, we've got to have clarity because we've got to know our story, because we want people to be part of our story. And I'm going to tell you, our story is an amazing story. It's an amazing story. When identity weakens, our mission loses clarity. We've got to have clarity. We've got to know what we're about. Remembering is not about nostalgia. I like this comment. That is essential for the future and the mission of the church. Why are we like we are? What have we done to get here? And how does God keep on showing up time and time and time and time again and just lifts us and takes us with him? So, I looked up the word Adventist. Do you know what the opposite of Adventist is? Departing. So we're not Seventh-day Adventist departers. We are Seventh-day Adventists because we're expecting Jesus to come. It is what we are expecting to do. Heritage is a movement. It's not just a museum. We want to make our heritage come alive. And it'd be shame for us not to. That video I showed you earlier was about making Sunnyside come alive. Now, it's an interesting thing about Sunnyside. A lot of people come in and they go, "Oh, will I touch something?" And the more we get to know Mrs. White, the more we go, "Yeah, touch it." Because that's what she'd want. Her place was like a revolving door, people coming in and her dealing with them and helping them. And we'll talk a little bit more about that soon too. Remembering is confidence to move forward. You're not going to go somewhere you don't know. If someone lets you down, you remember that. God never lets us down. Never lets us down. God commands, remember the former things of long ago. It says in Isaiah, and he was talking to the Israelites. Early on, the Bible establishes, and we'll get to that, authority about remembering. Remembering is commanded. It's not, you might want to do this. It's just remember. Just remember what I've done for you. Just remember how I've influenced your life. Just remember how I was there when you needed me. Just remember when I turned up. There's a whole lot of verses quickly that I could just grab that came out of the Bible about remembering, and I'll just expand on them as we go because I don't want to take you. Remember the Sabbath day, very quickly. Very simple. Remember the Sabbath day. And he said it in a rhythm. He said, every 7 days I want you to think about me again. Although we don't want to be 7-day Adventists. We want you to be, for the whole week. Every 7 day God calls us to remember. It's a reset of identity. And I love coming in and my wife will tell you that I love the hymns. I know I don't look old, but I love the hymns. And one of the things I find really interesting is when you have all the different songs, but when you have a hymn, you can just feel everyone join in straight away. Everyone joins in. Remembering is built into time itself. The Sabbath anchors our identity, it anchors our purpose, and it anchors our belonging. Everywhere you go, you can find someone that's an Adventist, and you connect with them. Remember is God's leading. Now, I always find this Deuteronomy. Remember how the Lord your God led you. It connects remembering to confidence. Faith for tomorrow is built on the memory of yesterday. God repeatedly tells people, look back so you can look forward. Now, I always find this next one quite interesting. The Israelites walking through the desert, they had a cloud over them at night. No, they had a fire over them at night. They had a cloud over them in the day. They were fed manna. They were given water from the stone. And you know what? They even saw a cloud come over Mount Sinai where God's presence was, and Moses went up, but they forgot. They forgot. I wish I had that sort of presence with me all the time. Memories for the next generation. Joshua did that. And I was reading about this morning to make sure, and I was thinking about when Joshua crossed the Jordan, he actually built a memorial in the middle of the Jordan so people walk through. And I often thought maybe we need to look at the memorial in our heritage as we walk through the troubled waters because they were passing to the promised land. And maybe that's something we need to look at because they could walk past and go, yeah, we're good, God's got us. Yeah, we're good, God's got us. They built it. The stones are a memorial forever. Oldie but a goodie, this quote. Remember God's faithfulness builds confidence in the future. Forgetting leads to uncertainty, doubt and loss. Our past is not just history, it's evidence of God's guidance. If remembering is central to Scripture, what does it mean for us today? Ellen White's, we have nothing to fear for the future except we shall forget the way that the Lord has led us. And I'm thinking in a world that we're living in where it's pretty uncertain, it's good to have certainty, isn't it? God has led. And if we look back at our stories, He has been with us the whole time. So, why does history matter? Why does our heritage matter? It's our identity. It supports our faith, as we've seen God do. It gives us direction. It gives us incredible confidence. And memory without memory, mission is just confusion. And with memory, there's clarity in what we're doing. Why are we doing TPUM for Christ? Why do we do PNGUM for Christ? Why? Our mission. It's our mission. I'm going to see if this one works. This is one of the reels that I talked about that some people have seen.
One date, one promise, and one of the biggest disappointments in history. On October 22nd, 1844, tens of thousands gathered, on hills, churches, and even graveyards. They waited for Jesus to return, but he didn't. The shock was devastating, but not everyone gave up. A small group went back to the Bible. They studied, they prayed, and the truth began to appear. They discovered something powerful. The date wasn't wrong, but the event was. Jesus had entered a new phase of ministry in heaven. The great disappointment became a great appointment, a clearer mission, a deeper hope, a call to the whole world. Sometimes disappointment is just the plot twist before the breakthrough. What if your greatest letdown is the start of your greatest call?
So we've got a whole series that add questions like that tell our history, and it's designed for young people, obviously, as you can see. So the Advent movement, 1844. The great disappointment became the great appointment. Crisis becomes a catalyst for growth and change. Failure becomes refinement. We refined on what we were doing. Remembering prevents collapse. A lot of people did leave, but there's those that went back to the Bible and started to study, and we'll look about that in a minute. And our memory gives us hope. So from disappointment came divine direction. Theology, I love this one. Theology emerged from humility. Why? We had to go back. Doctrine followed prayer. Mission followed clarity. We became to know who we were, what God was calling us to do. And the great appointment really refined that appointment.
They travelled far with simple lives and open hearts, telling the story of Jesus with actions and not just words. The Great Commission wasn't just a mission, it was a map, and Adventists followed it all the way to the ends of the earth. From the very beginning, Adventists had a global vision, not because it was trendy, but because they believed Revelation 14's message was for everyone. They packed their bags for places they'd never seen, cultures they didn't yet understand. They lived simply and taught with patience and love. They shared Jesus with people, with their lives and actions. They served wherever they went. It wasn't just a message that mattered. It was the method, humility, faith, and love. You don't need to cross oceans to live this mission. But if God calls you, don't hesitate. The world still needs someone like you to go.
Do you like that? It's good, isn't it? It tells us our story. We went. I will go. And I love the bit at the end there that we're talking about our heritage and the importance of the basis of everything, but it's also a challenge for us to do that in our own communities. Next door. Next door.
They travelled far with...
Sorry, Norm. So our mission became a mission-driven movement. Now, we are very holistic. We've got health, education, publishing, mission, aid services. Our mission was holistic from the beginning. Our faith was expressed through service. Belief always went outwards. The best way that you can serve God is to let Him live through you. Be kind. I'm going to do it right now. One of the things, like a couple of years ago, I had the privilege of going to Elmshaven, and there's a picture further on, and this is a good time to talk about it. And the Sabbath afternoon I was at Elmshaven, I happened to be there with 3 of Alan White's great-great-grandchildren. I think it was about 6 hours we sat there, because they said, "What's your stories from Australia?" So we started telling our stories, and then they started telling their stories. And then they started talking about the fact that Mrs. White had 4,000 people at her funeral. And it wasn't just the thing that really hit me the most about this. And I want to put away her writing. Sorry, Mark, we're just going to put her writings over here for a minute. E.G. White Research Centre man up the back there. When you'd start to get to know Mrs. White as a person, she was God's messenger, but she actually did the work in where she lived. It was her neighbours. 4,000 people. The people from Battle Creek that went there remembered when she was there, living there before she came to Australia. because of her kindness. When she was in Australia, she used to have her 4 secretaries go and measure people up to make clothes for. She would, the 450 fruit trees were, 540 fruit trees were for everyone to take. There was a time when she had some food taken. They had their Sabbath meal taken by some thieves, and they said, call the police, call the police. And she said, no, they needed it more than me. The one I love is she used to go out in her buggy. She used to be called the buggy lady, and she used to go out and start little fires, and then she'd have the local children come around and she'd feed them cookies, and while she was feeding them cookies, she would tell them of the love of Jesus. And why she had 4,000 people is because the impact that she had as a person was incredible. That's actually our heritage. The impact that we can have as people, that's our heritage. We became a global church from a small group. Our first missionary went to Switzerland. It's a pretty tough gig. I'm just thinking that wouldn't be a bad place to go as a missionary first, off into Europe. But we talked about PNG before, and we talked about the Andrew Stewart and flying around, the missionaries who went. The story, when I went to PNG, I was dropped at the beach where the missionaries were just dropped on the beach and left. Think about that for a moment. Rapid expansion shaped by purpose, not driven by power but by calling. God's leading was confirmed through our fruit, and we talked about how we are the fruit. We can do that. South Pacific. The more I get into South Pacific history as we go through our heritage, the more I'm beginning to just be blown away how good it is. The stories. And we could go through so many stories here, and I've tried not to, because I don't want to offend any particular union, but incredible stories about how God has led and how missionaries worked and how we have such a great story in itself. Missionaries crossed oceans, borders to tell the good news. God's leading reached these shores intentionally. This morning, one of the speakers, Lindell, was talking about how Mrs. White had a dream, and the one place she dreamt about was, the angel said Australia. I think the angel said the South Pacific, but Australia was the base. What do you reckon? That's what I think. Let's have a look at this, if I can get Norm working again.
Through storms and war, a small schooner became a lifeline for men. Not a cruise, not a luxury liner, just sails, sweat, and a sputtering engine heading into the unknown for the gospel. In 1917, the Adventist Church launched the Melanesia, a 76-ton schooner built in Sydney. A model of the ship was taken church to church, a shared dream built by sacrifice. Captain Griffith Francis Jones took the helm. Young missionaries followed, carrying Bibles and bandages to islands to share Jesus. Times were tough, but they pressed on, learning, loving, and living beside the people they served. During World War II, the Melanesia became a lifeline, evacuating missionaries from the Pacific as danger closed in. You may not have a boat, but your prayers and courage can carry hope to the ends of the earth.
Starting to get a theme here. Theme? It's about us, about what we can do, our heritage. Our heritage gives us a basis for us to do things. So, institutions were also built on mission. We talked a little bit about hospitals, schools, publishing. Institutions is practical theology. Is practical theology. Our school, I was a school teacher for too many years. No, not really, I loved it. It was amazing. But that's where we can influence kids. Spend the time with them. Faith expressed substantially. There we go. There's us with the great-great-grandchildren of Alan White. And actually, the gentleman in the red shirt in the middle, his son is a pastor at in Newcastle, Justin. And I'd already knew who he was. And I knocked on the door at Elmshaven, and he came out and I said, "Oh, how you going? Pastor Tarossian." And he looked at me and he goes, "How do you know me?" I said, "Because we're connected through your son, but we're also connected through mission." Story humanises doctrine. The more stories we hear about people, from our missionaries, from those people in Australia, from people overseas, the fact that we hear these stories, how God has led, and there's so many stories that are happening today. Are you enjoying the videos that are telling our story? They're cool, aren't they? We spent a bit of time researching and making sure that every union got a part. But you notice that we talk about our heritage and how important our heritage is, and then we bring it to the modern session and how it's actually being activated today. Story motivates faithfulness. I was actually going to do get a bit of an activity for everyone. I was going to do a relay race with a baton, but then I was going to take the baton out at one point. So everyone here and everyone in our church, if someone doesn't pass the baton of our heritage, what happens? What happens? We become one generation away from losing clarity, from losing our mission, from losing our faith. Very simple. It's this story that we keep on telling. Now that church there, anyone know what church that is? North Fitzroy Church. My parents went there many years ago. Knowing who we are, it helps us know what to do. Very simple. Knowing who we are, identity precedes mission. Confused identity produces confused mission. I've said it before in this program. Clear heritage produces confident action. What about inspiration for evangelism, what we're here for today? Pioneer courage is modern boldness. Now, we wrote this before I even heard Pastor Urton speak about being bold. It's a boldness because we've got a great message. Stories just don't inform, they inspire. Are you inspired by the stories that we're hearing? Are they making you want to get out and do something? Yeah, I reckon they are too. The pioneer sacrifices normalises faith. You know, we all go through difficult times, and sometimes we think we're having it tough if our TV's not working, if the internet's not working, if we don't get a phone call from our kids. We're doing it tough. Man, these missionaries, their faith and their drive to do what they did for God just blows me away. Heritage builds courage, not comfort. It gives us credibility and continuity. The more stories we tell. We talked about the baton being passed. If we don't pass the baton, we don't have that continuity. Continuity shows mission is sustainable. The church is not a temporary movement. In fact, this church is just about to step into the limelight. We are on the brink of doing what we were called to do. You can see it. You can see it. I'm been around a while and I've never seen anything like what I'm seeing now, and I'm just going, this is it. God has led before. Anyone ever been in a situation when you've asked God to answer a prayer and within minutes it's happened? Have you ever been in a situation where God has answered a prayer and you know that it's not exactly what you wanted, but it's what God has allowed to happen? But you know what? In some of those times, you've got to remember that there's two sides to this story. Memory is fuel for faith. Testimony, we're hearing testimonies, builds resilience. Hearing someone's story helps you just go, yeah, you know, God is there. He's going to be there for me. Remembering combats fear and discouragement. Intergenerational, getting the kids. I've got 2 grandchildren. I love telling them stories. We read them books and they love sitting and they cuddle in, and that's the moment. That's the moment. And again, it comes back to it may be, I don't know whether this has happened to you. A few years ago, I was sitting in the church and I had my own children sitting next to me, and a hymn came on and I started singing the words without the hymn book. Dad, how do you know that? Because that's my heritage. That's my heritage. Faith is transmitted relationally. The best way to reach someone is to get to know them. And they're going to find out, why are you so calm? Why have you got this incredible purpose? Why have you got faith that everything's going to turn out in the way that God wants it to? Incredible stories. Heritage prevents spiritual amnesia. You like that one? I think that's a good one too. Heritage as discipleship. Pathfinders, love it. Who did Pathfinders? Yeah, how good was it? Fantastic. I've still got my sash. I'm not sure whether I can fit into the uniform anymore. A few years ago I could. In fact, my son now wants to use my sash. Discipleship is more than behaviour. Identity shapes belief and action. Knowing the story shapes lifestyle and mission. And I better get moving. I didn't think I was going to. Heritage and revival. I really like this one. Thinking about it. Revival often begins with remembering. Biblical revival is always linked to remembrance. Remembering restores humility and gratitude. Humility comes up a bit at times, doesn't it? Heritage reconnects mission to God, not to methods. So who is preserving the story? You guys are. You've come to this session today. The responsibility must be ours. Mostly ours. Most ours. Must ours. But it's there. Must be ours. I think there's a B that's missing. Must be ours. Story preservation requires intentional stewardship. So when you get something to hold, your stewardship, and we want to help you at the Heritage Centre to do that. We want you to send people telling their story. We've all got mobile phones. We've all got the ability to be able to tape someone talking. If you can find someone to tell their story, please send it to us. We want to get it. We want to get this, and particularly we're around Corumbong area. We have a lot of people in the aged care centre. Is that the right word you're allowed to use? I'm not sure what you're supposed to use. The more mature areas. Yeah. So I'll just stop there. But we want to get their stories, the missionaries, and get their. There's the pilot that loves to tell his stories, and we've got incredible people that want to. There's a gentleman up in Caboolture that I've got to go and speak to about a whole range of amazing stories. History needs to be protected, shared, and passed on. That's our job. Youth are disconnected, but I think I wrote that, but then I'm doing a bit of research and I'm finding they're actually connecting with their history now. Youth are actually looking for meaning. They're looking for foundation. They're looking for, why are we in this situation? They want to know what's so special about us. They want to know why it's important to be part of us. They feel disconnected from institutional history. They've grown up in a world where everything's instant, and now it's starting to be, this is instant, it really hasn't got no meaning, it's so transitional. The problem is not rebellion. They don't rebel, they distance. The problem is not a lack of interest, it's a lack of connection. And that's why we focus at the Heritage Centre about everything that we do, that I'm going to trip over, is done for youth. Because I know you guys will watch it. The opportunity is to stay connected. Stories emotionally connected. Now, there's an old saying, how someone makes you feel is more important than anything else. Stories connect emotional before they inform intellectually. Young people connect with narrative, not timelines. Storytelling tells history into experience, and heritage is always full of answers. I'm moving because I know we've got to get moving. So we have a Facebook strategy that we work on, or social media strategy. Digital platforms are today's town squares. We've talked about digital. Short form content works best. I'm giving you some ways to work with our heritage now. Consistency matters more than polish. That's interesting. Get it done. Get it done. Video humanises history. This gentleman just gave us a missionary diary. He actually hasn't got much connection with the church, but he had this diary of a missionary that he wanted to bring his father. And he came and gave it to us because he wanted somewhere where he could preserve the history. Short, doesn't need to be perfect. Short films and testimonies. Going to get finished. Interactive experiences, like we do at Sunnyside. I'm sure you guys can do it too. Pathfinders do it. Interaction makes memory stick. Learning becomes experience, turning observation into participation. I like that one too. Podcasts. Anyone listen to Adventist history podcasts? There's some pretty good ones out there. There's a lot by the Adventist Heritage Centre which are good. You want to get onto it? But there's a whole range. Michael Campbell does one. That's pretty good. There's a few others like that. Really worth listening to. Great for commuting, walking, exercising, and creates an ongoing connection. Visual storytelling. In your church, have you got any pictures up about the history of your church? Something to connect to? Just an idea. We've just created, and we're happy to share it with you, we've just created a mural of Alan White in the Pacific. It's sitting outside the E.G. White and Research Centre in Avondale, and also in our research room at Heritage. If you would like to have that and put it up in your church, we're happy to share it with you. Is that all right, Mark? Can we do that? Good. Highlight growth while still honouring and valuing the past. Makes mission visible and tangible. So, youth ownership. This is your story. Pass it on. Ownership leads to advocacy. No one passes on and tells you anything unless they own it. They've got to own it. Young people want responsibility, not just information. We've had a lot of fun around Avondale University doing a lot of our social media and also our productions that we've done and our films. And the amount of young people that have, we want to know more once they've been involved. Once they get involved, they want to know more. Heritage thrives when shared, not guarded. So, what are you guys going to do? Heritage is not just a story, it's almost a verb. It wants you to do something. Mission becomes personal when we recognise its importance for the next generation. Understand the past leads. We're going to finish on 2 o'clock. And the real question is no longer if we should act, but how we should respond and how we should act. Now, I know there's Andrew's here from New Zealand, and we're starting to work with you guys. We've got Elisha, we're working with you at Fulton. We're talking to guys at PAU. We're going to come to the local churches real soon. And we're going to start working with you. And we're going to start telling our story in a manner that people that want to be a part of it. We want feedback. We want you to give us information. We want you to tell us your story, because we want everyone to know our story. And you know what? In the next 5 years, as we go through Pacific for Christ, it's going to be our foundation. It's going to be the thing that's going to carry us through. So, we have nothing to fear for the future. Let's do it. I nearly said, "Oh, you in?" but I thought I'd better not. That's Erton's call. Just want you guys to just come on board. We're always open. Please remember your history. Remember our heritage. and that's going to give us, like I said, the foundation to take us forward. Thank you.